So, all right, guys, we're back with another episode. This time, we're going to talk about running backs, and I'm going to hop right into it with one of my Cleveland Browns. I'm going to talk about Nick Chubb, and I'm liking over 8.5 rushing touchdowns. Now, Kareem Hunt is gone. He was splitting some red zone time with Kareem Hunt last year. Kareem Hunt was actually kind of the third down back, and he did take a lot of touchdowns away from Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, even with Kareem Hunt there, he got 12 last year. And I feel with Deshaun Watson, this is a better offense. It should be a better offense because, Jacoby Brissett took over last year, and he actually wasn't that bad. But I feel with Deshaun Watson, as the offense becomes more seamless, they should have more opportunities in the red zone. And Nick Chubb should have more goal line opportunities and definitely more carries than he had last year in the red zone. So if he got 12 last year with Kareem Hunt there, it's only injuries are going to hold him back from getting 9+. So my pick's going to be over 8.5 rushing touchdowns for my Cleveland Brown.
Yeah, he has 8 touchdowns every single season he's played in. I feel like that line's incredibly too low.
Right.
The guy I'm going to go with first is James Conner, a guy who I feel like in fantasy perspective gets looked over way too often. He constantly produces, but I feel like because he misses a couple games, people don't think of him as a good running back. But even with missing games, he's hit the line which is set at 715 yards the last 3 years, even with missing games in every single season. So even if you think he's going to get hurt, which I never bet on a player to get hurt, even though I'm talking about Tua before, you have to take into consideration. But no major injuries from James Conner. I think that, again, he's going to get the yards there. I think Arizona's going to be incompetent, but at the same time, I think James Conner is going to get fed. And I think 715 is a pretty safe line to take.
I like it. Yeah, I think he's underrated right now in like redraft. Like we like talking fantasy. I think he's underrated in redraft, and then you can get him pretty low in rounds. So I agree with that as far as his yards go as well. Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey. All right. Like I said, everybody loves him. Obviously, he's great. His rushing touchdowns are set at 7.5. So when you look at last year when he came over to San Francisco, that was week 7, but he only played in 28% of the snaps. It was week 8 on 10 games. He had 6 rushing touchdowns. That's compared to the 6 games with the Panthers before that. He only had 2 rushing touchdowns. He is the featured man in that offense in San Francisco. Everything runs through him. And yeah, he'll get some passing touchdowns too, but that is a run-heavy offense, and he is the guy who's going to be that run-heavy guy. We know who Christian McCaffrey is. Nobody's doubting his abilities. You might be doubting whether he's going to stay healthy, but we saw him bounce back last year, stay healthy. That was enough for me to see that he can stay on the field, and he's in a much better situation now with the 49ers. I'm hammering that over 7.5 rushing yards for Christian McCaffrey.
I do like that for the rushing touchdowns. But I do think Elijah Mitchell is someone who isn't accounted for often, and I think is going to be very heavily involved in the rushing game as well.
Now, I personally have a story about Christian McCaffrey. This is not football related, so if anyone's watching and they just want picks, they can fast forward through this. But since I live in Charlotte, I go to the Charlotte Knights games, the AAA baseball team for the Chicago White Sox. So he was throwing out the first pitch for one of the games, and I got his jersey, like an authentic, all stitched and everything, really expensive jersey, and I was going to get him to sign it as he came down the tunnel to throw out the first pitch. So I have the jersey like hanging with the pen, and Christian McCaffrey, he walks over, and he's about to grab the pen, and one of the guy says, no, we have to interview him first. So I'm like, oh, he was literally reaching for the pen. So he goes into the dugout and starts doing an interview, and then it starts raining down, pouring. And I have to, everyone goes under whatever cover, and they cancel the game, and he runs back inside. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's brutal,
so
man. You were seconds away from a McCaffrey autograph. Damn.
Yeah, so there's
What?
that. My sad story. So my next running back pick is going to be Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys on paper, according to PFF, have the sixth best offensive line last year. A lot of these guys got hurt, and they weren't a very good offensive line. But even not being a good offensive line, Tony Pollard, as the second running back who had 193 carries, he got 1,000 yards. So they have his line at 1,050 yards. And he was playing with Zeke, who got 231 carries. So now all those carries are gone. We can't expect Pollard to get, all 231, but we can expect his workload to go up just a little bit. Let's say he goes from 193 up to around 225. Even that, since he went over 1,000 yards, he didn't hit 1,050 with the bad offensive line issues and all. But even with, let's say, 30 more carries, I think 1,050.5 yards is very doable for Tony Pollard. And you guys were shaking your head no. So,
Well,
if you watch
bias.
our top 10 running backs episode, we talk a little bit about Tony Pollard. It's actually top 10 Dynasty running backs. We left him out of our top 10. But to be honest with you, for this specific pick, I do agree that he'll probably reach the 1,000-yard mark this season. I don't know. For me, I just think that you'll start to see his efficiency go down as he gets more carries.
To be honest, me shaking my head was purely off my Eagles bias, and it really had nothing to do with either of them. My second running back is James Cook for Buffalo. Another guy who I feel like could be somewhat of a sneaky pick there. He's only played one season. He had 507 yards last year, but every report that's coming out of camp is saying that he's shown that can do everything. He can catch out of the backfield. He can run. He can score around the goal line. So I think if he has the opportunity to be essentially a workhorse back in 500 yards, or what was the line here? Or 675 yards is very doable. Last year he had 507 and had 89 carries. He's going to get probably at least 145 plus, I would think. The only thing that could hold that back is if they go out and sign one of the veteran running backs that are sitting in free agency, which I do think. I've been saying a James Cook, Dalvin Cook backfield would be sick. But everything that's saying from camp is that he's the guy. So I feel confident with him getting 675 yards as a feature back.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the Bills just have neglected the running game entirely for the past 3 years. But regardless, that's not a hard number to hit. Like I said, I don't know if it was the last episode or if it was earlier this episode, but I kind of avoided picks rather than taking the under. But I'll talk about AJ Dillon and say that I think you can take the under here at 6.5 touchdowns, I believe is what he said. But last season he had 7 rushing touchdowns. That was his career high. And could he reach that again? Absolutely he can. He does get those goal line carries, I will say that. But you got to look at Aaron Jones, who actually had a career low in rushing touchdowns. And I just think that Aaron Jones is just going to have a monster year this year. I really think that he's kind of people are kind of quiet on him right now and don't realize how good he really is. I actually think he's one of the best running backs in the league coming up this year. And I just think with that being a two-headed kind of backfield, it's tough for me to bet the over on that. I think he'll be around there maybe, but I just at the very least would avoid betting the over on AJ Dillon rushing touchdowns.
Thank you everyone for watching that episode. Be sure to check out Death by Dynasty. I will have a link in the description to take you to their YouTube channel. They're actually DBD Fantasy Podcast, so be sure to check them out. If you'd like to discuss lines further, I have a Discord. The link will be in the description. And there will be a wide receiver / tight end episode that comes out. So thank you all for watching. God bless you. It's the final round. I will catch you on the next one. Bye.